Thank you, Mike. It's an honor to be here. And yeah, the sessions has been so high these past couple of days. So it's really a privilege. Today's agenda is, there's quite a lot of content I'm going to be covering. So I'll be curious to see how this ends up in the collaborative GDoc. And if any of you listening have questions, or if you'd like me to clarify anything, just comment in the chat, you tag me, I'll see it. But the agenda is we're going to be focusing on the understanding resilience, the heart, experiencing what resilience is, and then the hands and building resilience. A bit about my background. I am a resilience researcher, a meditation and a founder of the Curious Humans Academy, and a good friend of Mike's, as he mentioned. So yeah, I kind of wanted to open with this quote from Kafka. He says, "You won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure, in fact, whether the storm is really over. But one thing's certain, when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what the storm is all about." And I kind of wanted to this by saying that it's okay to feel overwhelmed right now. And I think, in all honesty, if you haven't experienced some kind of challenging or scary thoughts amidst a global pandemic, then you probably want to check your pulse. If you guys want an emoji in the chat, some challenging emotions in recent weeks, just be interesting to kind of get an emoji pulse check. Okay, so I just wanted to begin with a brief grounding exercise. I know some of you might have just come out of a movement class, and so having a bit of a relaxation might be helpful. So if you're sitting in a chair, just make sure that you're comfortable. Maybe support your lower back, ensure your lower spine is straight, and if you like, you can also close down your eyes. We did a couple of rounds of box breathing, and this is of an inhale for 4, holding for 4, exhale for 4, and then holding for 4. Comfortable? Everyone take and inhale 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath 2, 3, 4. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, and hold the breath out 2, 3, 4. And just complete one more round at your own pace. Okay, and in your own time, open up your eyes. So I'd like to open this with the question of, who do you think of as being exceptionally resilient humans, and what traits make them resilient? And maybe who's demonstrated resilience in recent weeks during COVID-19? And again, just feel free to share any comments in the chat. So instead of giving you a clinical definition of resilience, I'd like to take you on a short journey from my own experience last year. And I'd like you to imagine that you're floating in the ocean, wearing a weight and flippers. And after training your body, you're gearing up to dive 130 feet underwater. With your eyes closed, face down in the seawater, you can feel the heart slowing, and it's time to dive. Moving slowly, you lift your head from the water, letting the remaining air leave your lungs and begin one slow inhale. You feel your belly expand, storing 10 liters of air in your lungs. You begin to tumble forward and you begin the descent. And as you're finning and falling, you become negatively buoyant about 40 feet. And here you begin to free fall into this dark oblivion. And as you get to 90 feet, you feel a stomach contraction. And this is an autonomic response caused by the CO2 building up, and it's a signal to breathe. And you notice it and you continue to sink into this loving squeeze of the ocean. And then down at 130 feet, things get really interesting. Your lungs have shrunk to a third of their size and your muscles tense to compensate. And you try and equalize, but this pain builds up in your ears. And the only way to fall deeper at this point is by inquiring and scanning your belly and your chest for any tension and noticing the sensations present and then softening them. And this is a kind of counterintuitive act of surrender, and it allows you to pass from the lungs up past your soft palate and let it equalize in your ear. And the reason I'm sharing this, and I think the deeper insight, is that I think it's the same process for cultivating resilience under extreme stress, whether it's lack of oxygen and pressure from the ocean or intensely triggering process is inquire, notice tension that has arisen. Teaching resilience to start around as before this, it was really this 2-year roller coaster of navigating grief that shattered everything that I thought I knew about resilience. And really one of the main insights was that it wasn't about staying strong, but learning how to be weak and how to ask for help and embracing this radical inquiry for the deep pain that I experienced. So I'd like you to take just a second to pause and reflect and think of a time when you experienced an emotional challenge in your life. What happened, and did you grow from the experience?
Okay, how's that sounding? Oh no. Microphone? Audio is fine. Okay, cool. All right, well, I will keep going. It's okay. So yeah, any emotional challenges in your life? What happened, and did you experience in any way? I'd love to kind of hear any reflections. And the point from this is that pain and heartbreak and loss, they're kind of inevitable experiences in any human life. And I think the secret, and maybe been a theme of Metamorphosis so far, is that the real breakthroughs emerge from being broken open. And being a resilient human means learning this alchemy of turning obstacles into fuel for growth. And I really believe that the way we do this is by having the courageous curiosity to not distract or stuff up any of the feelings, but really inquire within and feel into that discomfort. And this is obviously not a new idea, and Wilkie put it beautifully when he said, winning doesn't tempt that man. This is how he grows, by being defeated decisively by constantly greater being. And I think that's just a beautiful way to put it. So I know quite a few of you are left brain type, so I wanted to give a couple of frameworks for resilience as well. Here, did on 2x2. On the x-axis, we have self-awareness. On the y-axis, we have emotional intensity. And where might you put yourself on this spectrum right now? Just out of curiosity, if you were to drop a little pin in there. And to give you a couple of examples of how I use this, I think that there are probably a number of people going through very emotionally intense experiences likely catalyzed by COVID-19. And for me, I think self-awareness is the key between people who are resilient and kind of emerging as leaders in this world, and those who are kind of on the highway to burnout. And I think this for me is kind of a helpful framework. And I know HighExistence have a lot of courses and offerings to help increase your self-awareness. And I think that is ultimately the journey that we're on here. And I kind of believe that resilience is what we see in the external world as a result of cultivated internal self-awareness. And the internal self-awareness is only a result of courageous curiosity, which is the willingness to investigate and feel into painful experiences. So I want to talk about barriers to resilience. And I believe that we're all inherently resilient creatures. Our collective ancestors have overcome hundreds and thousands of years of challenges. And in many ways, I think it's our recent cultural conditioning that gets in the way. So here are 4 barriers that I think kind of get in the way. The first is this. It's actually an idea borrowed from Buster Benson, who gave a talk yesterday. And I like to talk about our lack of awareness of our different modes of being. And I think that one of the reasons that we burn out is just an insufficient appreciation for which mode of being that we're in. So right now, I imagine most of you are in a combination of people mode and maybe novelty mode. And this is just a hypothetical example from my own life pre-COVID. But by simply asking this question and thinking about how you're designing and scheduling your weeks and being aware which mode you're in is really beneficial. And I think that some of the benefits of COVID is that for many of us at least, the work mode has decreased in priority, and we've more time covering and to ourselves and to maybe getting into flow. And I think that's a healthy kind of silver lining from what's happened recently. And yeah, and I just wanted to kind of share this example from my own calendar of two different Mondays. One of them is stacked of work and kind of to-dos, and the other's resting. And both are it's just being in different modes of being. And I think that many of us feel guilty when we're switching off and when we're not working the whole time. So that I think is an important consideration. The second, our beliefs around stress, and many of us have kind of unhelpful relationships to stress and ways of processing this emotional intensity. And I think there's a really important distinction between stress management and resilience. So Kelly, who's a Harvard researcher, she says that stress and meaning are inextricably linked. You don't stress out about things, you don't create a meaningful life without experiencing some stress. And so the idea is, what I wanted to talk about is this idea of something called eustress, which was coined back in the 70s, I think. And it's this idea that there are these positive stresses in our life that enable us to grow. So here's a little example from my own life. And maybe if you guys want to comment with some recent examples of eustress or positive stress in your own life. Missing everything. Okay, hopefully the audio is going to pick up. We'll see. Okay, but yeah, if you have any examples of eustress from your own experience, just feel free to share them in the chat. And yeah, it's based on this idea that painful experiences are an invitation to grow, and that these gifts emerge from painful experiences, and they're almost like invitations to a larger identity. And related to that, here's a model based on Campbell's hero's journey that I imagine you might be familiar with. And I kind of see this being the journey of resilience, in that we often experience these emotional triggers in our lives, and the call to adventure step two is to process of self-inquiry. But this is also where many of us refuse to call, and we'll numb out, or we'll distract ourselves, or we'll find other reasons not to actually look at the source of that trigger. But if we do lean into it and we do accept the negative, there's the opportunity to really inquire into where it is in the body and where it lives, to feel into it, and ultimately, as with freediving, to surrender into that sensation and to relax into it, and to ultimately inquire as to what the insight might be that is revealed underneath that, or what that trigger was trying to teach us. And I think for me, this is the process that we go through so many times in our lives, and it doesn't necessarily get easier, but we just get used to this circular process. The third barrier that I think a lot of us have is excessive pride. And this was a huge kind of learning process during grief, as someone who was kind of identified with being very self-reliant and able to be completely independent and not needing other people. And I think that the truly resilient people are those who have support structures, and they have loving communities of people around them for encouragement. And yeah, I think this is particularly for men, I'll say, is a particularly tricky barrier. And then fourth, this is a pretty big topic, is just nervous system regulation and kind of understanding it. And I'd probably like to spend a good amount of time talking about this, but yeah, for now, we breathe 25,000 breaths every day on average, and the more conscious we are of these breaths, the more they impact how we think and how we feel. And I have a breathwork teacher who's in Bali, and he likes to say that how we breathe is how we think, which is a pretty bold statement, but when you break it down, your breathing pattern activates your nervous system, your sympathetic or your parasympathetic state, and this then activates your endocrine system, which is connected to the network of glands in your body, and this produces adrenaline or cortisol or different felt sensations, and these hormones change your blood chemistry, and they actually change how you think and how you feel. So our breathing pattern at any point in time direct influence on our thoughts and on our emotions. And this for me is just fascinating, and it's something that none of us are taught growing up. How it's related to resilience, the perspective of the nervous system, resilience is how quickly we can drop back to our baseline after a stress-inducing experience. So this graph in the corner shows something known as HRV, which stands for heart rate variability, which can be tracked using most modern variables, and it basically measures the variance in time between the beats of your heart. And basically, the greater the variability is, the more resilient your nervous system is. And things like freediving training or breath work or meditation have been shown to increase your HRV scores, which ultimately increases your resilience. And so in terms of how is this actually useful and how could you apply this, if you wanted to kind of activate your nervous system and get charged up, there's a breathwork session on earlier today. A good example would be, say, Wim Hof. And the premise of this is if you have a more intense inhale, that is going to activate your sympathetic nervous system, and it's going to charge you with energy. So if you're, say, you've just had a nap or you're feeling sleepy, you can take a few rounds of these rapid inhales, and it will really charge you. But I think the important point to consider here, many of us, I guess, who identify as being ambitious and maybe high achievers, we spend a lot of our waking lives in this high-tone, sympathetic state of being. And often, this is what leads to burnout, when we spend too long in this sympathetic state and we don't have adequate time for rest and relaxation. Kind of what I wanted to talk about here, which is the parasympathetic state, which is all about the body's relaxation. And you can activate this simply by taking a long exhale, particularly into the belly. And I've created an anti-Wim Hof or Dim Hof breathing exercise, which I'd love to lead you guys through for a couple of rounds. So if you, reading something. This uses something called an alternate nostril breathing technique. So if you raise your hand like this, you're going to use your thumb to block off the right side of your nose, and fingers block the left side. We're going to breathe in the left side for 3. We're going to hold for 3. We're going to breathe out the right side for 6. And we're then going to repeat through the right side and then out to the left side. So the idea is the exhale is twice as long as the inhale. So you could do this 4 and 8, or even 5 and 10 if you have increased capacity. So I'll just get. So in left for 3. 3. Then hold for 3. 2, 3. Then out right for 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then in right for 3. 2, 3. Hold for 3. 2, 3. Out left for 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can repeat this for as many times as you like. I usually do between times. And I did this myself before giving a TEDx talk a few months ago. It made such a difference. I felt like I could feel my heart rate kind of slowing down in real time. And it's so empowering to really have conscious control over our nervous system. When we get into these states of fight or flight, or we get stressed out or triggered, just knowing that we can do these pretty simple breathing exercises and just rapidly relax our nervous system is just really, really powerful. So I wanted to move into a section around experiencing it. And if you have any questions about this breathing, please feel free to mention in the comments as well. Yeah, it's definitely used in Kundalini yoga. Yeah, it's a Nadi Shodhana is the kind of the Vedantic term, or the Sanskrit term. So firstly, I want to talk about journaling, which is something that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, especially if you've done any of the HighExistence 30-day challenges. I kind of wrote some of my exercises from a book called The Artist's Way, which is by Julie Cameron, which I found fantastic. And I think journaling is one of the most powerful resilience building exercises that we can embrace. And one of my preferred approaches is creating a dialogue from fears to yourself. And I used to begin this by just writing on a piece of paper, "Dear Jonny, I am your fear. This is what I want to tell you." And this might feel kind of like silly, and you might feel like you maybe don't need to do it or give fear a chance to speak, because maybe it's just talking the whole time. Maybe it never shuts up and you're sick of hearing this voice of fear and it drives you crazy. But instead of trying to kind of repress it and drown it out, just give it a chance to be uninterrupted and even embody it and listen to everything that the fear wants to tell you without arguing, without debating. Just listen, and it's almost like you're taking dictation. And yeah, I really recommend taking some time to do this, maybe after a meditation or when you wake up in the morning when you're still relatively fresh. And I've been surprised in my experience what. And the second resilience, I guess, tool that I wanted to talk about is meditation. And I would imagine that most of you are no strangers to meditation. And I know there've been some wonderful meditations already in this retreat. And I think meditation is almost like mental training, and there's different kind of qualities that we can train as we might be training strength or stamina in the gym. We can train equanimity or concentration or focus or empathy or loving kindness and compassion. and different meditations will train different aspects of our mental capacity. And the one that I want to talk about here is equanimity. There have been brain studies that show that equanimity is literally like a muscle that you can cultivate through specific meditation practices. And I love this quote from Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor and the founder of logotherapy. And he says that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And this is the idea of cultivating equanimity, that we can observe and witness and acknowledge with the intense sensations and feelings and emotions that we experience both internally and externally. And we get to be still. And from that place of stillness, we get to choose how we respond. And this is something that is just, it's like a superpower for life. And if you can cultivate this quality of equanimity in increasingly stressful situations, you'll just have a rapidly easier time. Reminds me of the fear setting practice. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I wanted to guide you through the experience of a resilience meditation. And for this is going to take about 10 minutes. And I just wanted to give you an experience of what it means through that hero journey cycle of inquiring into a challenging experience and feeling and surrendering in challenging emotions. And the aim of this meditation is to help you process some of those feelings and cultivate a somatic awareness, which increases our capacity to step further outside of our comfort zone and mine these challenging experiences for insight and wisdom and greater self. But before we kind of go into that space, it's important that we're first calm and centered, and with the nervous system and an open heart. So, as before, ensure that you're sitting somewhere comfortable and you feel safe and unlikely to be disturbed. And ideally, you want to be kind of upright, either on a cushion or upright in a chair, with your lower back. So maybe feel yourself grounded through the base of your spine. So now move your awareness to your breath. And we're going to do a few rounds of box breathing as we did in this session. So everyone take a exhale and inhale together. 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath. 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath out. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. And now just complete 2 more rounds at your own pace. And as you're breathing in, just paying attention to the smoothness of your breath and evening out any rough edges. Allow your belly to be soft. You're breathing into a softening belly. And if your mind wanders, which it probably will, then just bring it back to the end of your nostrils. Feel the air coming in and tickling your nose hairs. Maybe you notice that your breath is becoming quieter and less perceptible. finally, releasing all conscious control of your breath. It's almost as if your breath is breathing you. Closing down your eyes if they're not open. And now from this place of ease and calm, I'd like you to embody a sense of courageous curiosity and inquire into an area of your life that you feel challenged by. And it's almost as if you're dropping a question into the well of your subconscious. What am I challenged by? And maybe it was the frustration of someone cutting you off in traffic, or the image of someone that you feel difficult to be around, or perhaps in the future, perhaps it's a fear evoked by a challenging question that you're anticipating. But you're just paying attention to whatever arises without any judgment. And if your mind weighs in, just watch it. There's no need to jump into the river. And once you've identified this feeling or this sensation, the next stage is to notice where it appears physically in your body. If it's related to the fear of speaking up, then perhaps your throat is tense. Or if it's a feeling of frustration, then maybe you feel it in your lower chest and your belly is clenched and tight. But wherever you notice it, just allow your body to be with the entire physical sensation. It's almost as if you're mapping out this landscape to see where it begins and where it ends as a felt sensation in this moment. And maybe inquiring into if the feeling had a shape. What shape would it be? Would it be heavy? Would it be light? Maybe it would have soft edges or sharp edges. Would it be bright or dull? Just watch and let the sensation reveal itself to you. And once it does, and you've almost traced it out, really feel it. Go back. And if your body wants to contract some more, then let it. You're safe to do so. Your mind might have labeled this as negative, but in this exact moment, it's only a sensation and it deserves to be felt. And as you keep feeling into the sensation, even if it feels like to do so, just accept it in the body. It's almost like you're inviting a badly behaved child back into the playground. And just let yourself soften into this sensation with a kind, accepting presence. You can say to yourself, I accept, I accept, I accept. And the tension in that area of your body relaxes. It's as if you're surrendering completely and watching the tension evaporate. And right now, there's nothing to do and there's nothing to fix. Just sink deeper and deeper into the feeling. Eventually, you'll find arriving in a place of great calm and stillness. And notice how you've opened up And it feels more light and spacious here. And finally, from this place of calm, ask yourself the question, what was this sensation here to teach? And what insight can I return back with and take with me into the future? And again, don't try to answer this intellectually, but drop the question into that space and just pay attention to whatever arises. Maybe repeating it in your own mind. What was this sensation here to teach me? And what insight can I return back with and take with me into the future? And maybe an image will arise, or a thought, or a sense of knowingness, or maybe nothing at all. Just allow yourself to sit with that inquiry. And now I'd like you to watch whatever has arisen and visualize in its center a luminous golden light. It's almost like the filament of a light bulb. It's small, but it fills up your body with its radiance. And watch this light intensify. It fills up your entire chest, your arms, your legs, into your hands, down into your shins and your feet. And finally, up your spine and into your head. See this light spill out of you into the room, into the rest of the house, and then out into the world. And from here, just take a few moments to rest and just to be. And now, when you're ready, please lower your chin to your chest and gently open up your eyes. And the meditation is now complete. So I'd be really curious to hear what arose to the surface for any of you guys. If you could maybe write in the chat and share anything that arose for you during that meditation. Okay, I will move on to the final section, which is on building resilience. And I want to begin with a quote from a Papua New Guinea tribe that's probably my favorite quote of all time, that is, knowledge is only a rumor until it lives in the muscle. And I feel that resilience is a skill that must be practiced, and it requires permission to invest time and resources into cultivating it. And what I want to kind of finish this this workshop on is the idea of an emotional resilience stack. And I think it's interesting that we have so many apps and tools for assisting us in the external world, but what many of us lack are tools for navigating our internal challenges. And so what I've created is a kind of a framework for exploring these different areas of resilience. And I've split this up into recovery, capacity, and inquiry. And for me, these are very distinct areas. The recovery section is all about asking which are the habits that help to recharge you and get you back to baseline. So things like wearables can help to give you more data on this, and maybe asking if these are positive or negative in the long term. So, for example, if you drink a few glasses of whiskey at the end of the day, like that might be to downregulate your nervous system and relax, but it might not be positive in the long term. And also asking if they're conscious or unconscious. In the section around capacity, this is which habits you have on a daily or weekly basis that increase both your physical and mental capacity. How are you training your equanimity? And asking what are some of your support structures? These could be both internal and external. And what are some of the ways that you're cultivating this non-judgmental awareness amidst very stressful. And the third section is around inquiry. And these are the emotional regulation strategies, which could be something like the meditation exercise that we've just been through. These could be journaling exercises. And the idea is ways of investigating these challenging experiences to surface some of the deeper insights. It can be done with a coach or with a therapist or with a trusted friend. And this is, for me, the most interesting, and it's where the post-traumatic growth tends to occur. And it requires both somatic self-awareness and awareness from internal narratives and biases. So to give you an example of what this might look like, and I've kind of given you as some homework, as a mini assignment, what are some of the ways that you can upgrade your resilience stack? So in each area, think about how are you tracking or how are you measuring some of these practices, and what can you do to increase your resilience during this really challenging time. So for me, I have a couple of trackers, something called a Whoop band. I practice yoga nidra, and it's and kind of switch off screens after 8 p.m. Try and bring in some play and some music or some ukulele into my days. Just try and consciously at the end of a busy day. And then in terms of capacity, things like daily cold plunges or daily meditation or gratitude journaling, these things can really increase our overall capacity to withstand stress. And on a kind of less frequent basis, things like Vipassana retreats or even plant medicine ceremonies, these things can be really powerful for increasing our capacity to withstand stress and to hold energy. And then in the section, just asking, how long does it take you to go from being triggered to being curious? And I think for me, this is an interesting progress, in that if, say, something happens and you notice yourself being angry, do you stay angry for the next 2 or 3 hours? Do you stay pissed off, or are you able to get curious about it and to relax? Some of the habits in this area, a lot of them are related to building support structures. So maybe you have coach, or you have empathy, part of a men's group or a women's circle, or you have practices for self-inquiry. It could be journaling, it could be meditation. And yeah, just being really curious about what are some of the habits that you already have in your life and which ones can you add to this? Can you add to this stack? Yeah, so feel free to send around a link so you guys can fill this out if you like. And that brings us to the end of this presentation. And I wanted to yeah, kind of acknowledge that we've covered quite a bit of ground, and a lot of these topics take, you know, a long time to learn and a long time to master. And if any of you are interested in learning more about this and continuing the journey, I'm running 3 resilience modules and masterclasses in May, and you can find more information about this through the bit.ly link on this slide, or just drop me a message on Twitter or Instagram, and I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, I kind of wanted to leave the last few minutes of this for open questions or reflections. Anything that particularly resonated with you, or questions you have relating to resilience in your I know the audio has been a little bit choppy during this, so I apologize for that. But yeah, I'd be curious to hear from you guys what came up. Yeah, apologies about the audio. What wearable would I recommend? So I use Whoop Band. The Aura Ring is particularly good, and it gives you HRV. It's really good for tracking sleep. And yeah, I think that from what I've done, Aura is particularly good. And there's also something called the Muse headband, that if you're new to meditation, it's like a headband that you wear, and it tracks your brainwaves, so it will give you real feedback and tell you what brainwave state you're in. So if you're in or alpha or theta, and they will play music that's in volume depending on how relaxed you are. So if you're meditation, that's really good kind of wearable to help kickstart your learning. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Shame about the audio. For those of you that can hear me now, what have been some of the habits or the rituals or maybe the support structures that have helped you to navigate through challenging experiences in the past? And I would imagine that quite a few of you have experienced some emotional challenges in recent years. And I'd love to hear from you what has been helpful to enable you to move through this. Thanks, Philip. Much appreciated. Question from Isha. One of my unconscious recovery practices is a freeze response that's oversleeping or smoking tobacco. Despite endeavors to my capacity, I wonder, what would you recommend doing to switch from an unconscious to a conscious response? That is a really interesting question. I think the first thing to do is to notice when you are freezing and when that comes up for you, and not necessarily trying not to judge it, but just being in a place of acceptance, noticing like, I'm freezing, or I'm oversleeping, or I'm noticing an urge to smoke tobacco right now. And even just that process of inhabiting that kind of witness consciousness, as opposed to completely identifying with with the person that is freezing. That can help to build some of that psychological distance. The same thing that Viktor Frankl talked about, that will eventually enable you to kind of intervene. And in terms of finding other habits, it's tricky to know without kind of knowing what is causing some of the freeze response. Maybe finding other ways of relaxing your nervous system that aren't necessarily smoking or other of these kind of less conscious habits. That could be going outside and kind of doing some star jumps. It could be doing a short yoga nidra practice or a short meditation. But the wedge into that is really just noticing when that urge or that impulse is arising and just becoming aware of it. And the more aware that you are, you can even get these wristbands where every time that comes up, people switch wrists. It's not just it, it's just like noticing that impulse is arising, and over time that will enable you to hopefully build conscious habits. Read. The headband was called Muse, and the band is Muse 2, and they're a fantastic piece of hardware, and they have a lot of good guided meditations as well. Meditation, visualization, gratitude journaling, affirmations to build confidence. Yeah, they sound very helpful. But thank you for sharing. Journaling is powerful, and the idea of developing a personal journaling practice. Yeah, absolutely. And I would really recommend a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And she has a kind of 12-week self-guided where the idea is every day you will engage in this practice called pages, and she recommends 3 full pages, and it's just a stream of consciousness, any kind of filtering. And as you kind of develop a relationship with your inner voice, these kind of insights start to come through, and it's a really powerful self-awareness technique. And Sen for sharing the Yoga Nidra. Yeah, I tend to use Rod Stryker's Yoga Nidra meditations, but I know there's a lot out there. And Yoga Nidra is in many ways, I think, a medicine for our times. I think that being able to survive in these stressful times is really what we need. And yeah, it's also great for kind of dropping into your subconscious as well. When you're in that relaxed and surrendered state, you can drop in ideas and things to manifest in the future. So it's really powerful. Thanks, John, for sharing the Julia Cameron morning pages. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, it looks like we're coming up to 4 o'clock. Thanks to those of you that joined, and apologies for the video. Hopefully the recording will be better quality. And yeah, wishing you all the best. Thank you so much to the HighExistence team for putting this on.